The sound of expensive Italian leather shoes echoed through the marble lobby of Zenith Towers as Marcus Okafor stepped over the wet floor, deliberately stepping on the spot the old cleaner had just mopped. "Clean it again," he sneered, not even looking at her face. What he didn't know was that this 70-year-old woman scrubbing floors had a secret that would bring him to his knees, and one phone call, just one, would change everything. If you want to see how one phone call humbles a billionaire, smash that like button right now, drop a comment telling me what you think will happen next, and subscribe because what's coming in the next chapters will leave you speechless. Now, let's continue. Mama Adaize had been cleaning the floors of Zenith Towers for 3 years. Every morning at 5 a.m. before Lagos awakened, she arrived with her bucket, mop, and a heart full of prayers. Her uniform was faded, her hands were wrinkled from years of hard work, but her eyes still held the dignity of a woman who had seen both heaven and hell. She once lived in a mansion, she once wore gold, but life had stripped everything away. Her husband's business collapsed, he died of a heart attack, and their son, their brilliant son, Chikunuma, had gone abroad 15 years ago to study medicine. The letters stopped coming, the calls became rare, then silent. Mama Adaize convinced herself he was ashamed of her poverty, so she never told him about the cleaning job. Pride, even in poverty, runs deep in African mothers. Marcus Okafor, on the other hand, was everything Lagos worshipped. At 38, he was the CEO of Okafor Global Investments, a self-made billionaire whose face graced magazine covers and whose name opened every door in West Africa. Raised in the gutters of Ejigunle, Marcus had clawed his way to the top, and somewhere along that bloody climb, he'd forgotten where he came from. Now he treated people beneath him like insects. "Are you deaf, old woman?" Marcus's voice boomed across the lobby as executives and security guards froze. Mama Adaize looked up slowly, water dripping from her mop. "I said, clean it again. You missed a spot." She hadn't missed anything. He had deliberately dirtied it. "Sir, I don't pay you to talk. I pay you to clean." His eyes were cold, reptilian. "Matter of fact, you're too slow. How old are you? 70? 80? This building needs younger staff. Consider this your last week." Mama Adaize's hands trembled, but she said nothing. She'd learned long ago that silence was survival. As Marcus walked toward the elevator, his phone rang. He answered without looking at the screen. What? The voice on the other end made his blood freeze.
Marcus Okafor. The voice was calm, measured, with the authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "This is Dr. Chukwuma Ades. I believe you just fired my mother." Marcus's finger hovered over the elevator button. His entire body went rigid. Dr. Chukwuma Ades, the name alone carried weight across 3 continents. Chief Medical Director of the International Health Initiative, advisor to presidents, the man who'd pioneered breakthrough treatments that saved millions across Africa. Forbes had called him the healer of nations, and Marcus had just... His mind raced backward, connecting dots he'd been too arrogant to see. "Your mother?" Marcus's voice cracked, the billionaire facade shattering like cheap glass. Behind him, Mama Ades had gone completely still, her mop frozen midair. She recognized that voice. After 15 years of silence, after countless nights crying herself to sleep wondering if her son was alive, that voice pierced through time itself. "I have cameras, Mr. Okafor," Dr. Chukwuma continued, his tone colder now. "In fact, I've had security monitoring my mother's safety in that building for the past 6 months. I've watched you humiliate her 7 times. 7. I kept silent because she begged me to. She didn't want me to interfere with her work, said she needed the dignity of earning her own way. But firing her? Stepping on her freshly mopped floors like she's beneath you?" Marcus turned slowly. The entire lobby was watching now. security guards, executives, the receptionist, all frozen in this unfolding drama. Mama Adaise's eyes were filling with tears, but she wouldn't let them fall. Not here, not in front of these people. "Dr. Adaise, I didn't know." "You didn't know?" Chukwuma's laugh was bitter. "You didn't know she was human? You didn't know she was somebody's mother? Or you didn't know her son had power, so you thought you could treat her like garbage?" The question hung in the air like an executioner's blade. What Marcus didn't know, what no one in that lobby knew, was that Mama Adaise had sold everything to send Chukwuma abroad. Her jewelry, her late husband's properties, even her wedding ring. She'd cleaned homes, sold food by the roadside, done whatever it took. And when Chukwuma became successful, she'd refused his money, refused to move into the mansion he'd built for her in Ikoyi. "I didn't raise you to carry me like baggage," she'd told him during their last video call 6 months ago. "Let me finish my race with dignity." But Chukwuma had installed cameras anyway, hired private security to watch from a distance, because African sons never stop protecting their mothers, even when those mothers are too stubborn to accept protection. Marcus's hands were shaking now. His empire was built on connections, on networks, on reputation. Dr. Chukwuma Adaise wasn't just powerful, he was connected to every major player in African politics and business. One word from him and Marcus's investors would vanish like smoke. "Please," Marcus whispered, his pride crumbling, "let me make this right." "Make it right?" Chukwuma's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt louder than shouting. "You want to make it right? Then get on your knees, Mr. Okafor, in front of everyone in that lobby, and apologize to my mother." The elevator dinged behind Marcus. Someone gasped. Mama Adaise finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Chukwuma, no, please!" But her son wasn't finished. "You have 10 seconds to decide, Mr. Okafor, your pride or your empire. Choose." 10, 9, 8. Marcus Okafor had built an empire on the principle that he would never bow to anyone. Not to the politicians who tried to extort him, not to the old money families who looked down on his Ajagunle origins, not even to his own father who'd abandoned him as a child. His knees had never touched the ground for any human being. 7, 6, 5. But as he looked at Mama Adaige, really looked at her for the first time, he saw something that made his chest tighten. She wasn't just afraid. She was ashamed. Ashamed that her son had to fight her battles. Ashamed that her poverty had been exposed. In her eyes, Marcus saw his own mother, who'd died cleaning a rich man's house when Marcus was 12. 4, 3. "Chukwuma, please stop this," Mama Adaise begged into the phone she didn't hold, speaking to a son who could hear everything through Marcus's speaker. "I don't need—" "Mama, you've bent your knees for 15 years cleaning floors for people who don't see you as human." Chukwuma's voice cracked with emotion. Just once, let someone bend their knees for you." 2. Marcus's Rolex caught the light as he slowly, deliberately lowered himself to his knees on the marble floor his mother had just cleaned, the same floor he'd stepped on with contempt 5 minutes ago. The lobby erupted in gasps. Someone's phone clattered to the ground. Marcus Okafor, the untouchable billionaire, was on his knees. "Mama Adaise." His voice was barely a whisper, but in the dead silence of the lobby, everyone heard it. "I am sorry. I am deeply, deeply sorry." Tears finally escaped down Mama Adaise's weathered cheeks. She tried to pull him up. "Please, sir, get up, please." But Marcus stayed down, and now his own eyes were wet. My mother died cleaning houses. I watched her scrub floors until her hands bled. I watched rich people treat her like she was invisible, and I swore I would never let anyone treat me that way. But somewhere, I became the thing I hated most. The phone speaker crackled. Dr. Chukwuma's voice was softer now, but still firm.
Mr. Okafor, my mother isn't just a cleaner. She has a master's degree in education. She was a headmistress before my father's business collapsed. She chose this job because after 15 years of me sending money she never spent, she wanted to earn something that was hers. Do you understand? She has more dignity in her little finger than most people have in their entire body. Marcus looked up at Mama Adaeze with new eyes. A master's degree? She nodded, embarrassed. It was a long time ago. And you've been cleaning floors? Honest work is honest work, she said simply, with the quiet wisdom that only comes from surviving everything life can throw at you. Mr. Okafor, Chukuma said, I'm flying into Lagos tonight. Tomorrow morning, you and I are having breakfast, but not in your fancy restaurant. We're eating at the staff canteen, with the cleaners, the security guards, the people who make your tower run while you're too busy being important to see them. Marcus was still on his knees. I will be there. And one more thing, Chukuma said. My mother isn't fired. In fact, effective immediately, you're promoting her. She's now your Director of Staff Welfare with a salary that reflects her education and experience, and she'll report directly to you so you'll see her face every single day and remember this moment. Mama Adaeze's hand flew to her mouth. Chukuma, I can't. Yes, you can, Mama, and you will. Your days of hiding are over. The line went dead. Marcus finally stood up, his expensive suit wrinkled, his pride shattered, but somehow, for the first time in years, he felt lighter. He extended his hand to Mama Adaeze, not as a billionaire to a cleaner, but as one human being to another. Will you accept? He asked. Will you help me learn how to see people again? Mama Adaeze looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Then, with the grace of a queen who'd never stopped being royalty even while scrubbing floors, she took it. The next morning, Marcus Okafor arrived at Zenith Towers at 5:30 a.m., 90 minutes before his usual time. No driver, no entourage, no designer suit. Just jeans, a simple shirt, and a humility he'd forgotten existed. The staff canteen was a cramped space in the basement that Marcus had never visited in 5 years of owning the building. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Plastic chairs surrounded mismatched tables, and the air smelled of beans and instant coffee. 23 staff members, cleaners, security guards, maintenance workers, sat frozen in shock as their billionaire boss walked through the door. Mama Adaeze was already there, sitting among her colleagues, no longer in a cleaner's uniform, but in a simple but dignified Ankara dress. She'd barely slept, her mind spinning with the seismic shift her life had taken in 24 hours. Good morning, Marcus said softly, and the room erupted in nervous murmurs. At precisely 6 a.m., Dr. Chukuma Adaeze walked in. He was tall, commanding, with his mother's eyes, and a presence that filled the room without effort. He wore no designer labels, no flashy jewelry, just the quiet confidence of a man who'd saved thousands of lives and had nothing left to prove. The staff recognized him immediately. Phones came out. Whispers spread like wildfire. That's Dr. Adaeze, the one from CNN, Mama Adaeze's son. Chukuma walked straight to his mother and kissed her forehead. She broke down completely, 15 years of separation flooding out in sobs against her son's chest. My boy, she kept saying. My boy came home. I was always home, Mama. I was just waiting for you to let me back in. Marcus watched this reunion and felt something crack open in his chest, the place where he'd buried his own grief about his mother's death 26 years ago. They sat together. Billionaire, doctor, and the invisible workers who kept the tower running. Chukuma had arranged for proper breakfast. Jollof rice, plantains, eggs, fresh bread, not the stale offerings usually provided. Let me tell you all something, Chukuma began, addressing the entire room. 6 months ago, I offered my mother a mansion, a driver, a life of comfort. You know what she told me? He looked at Mama Adaeze with pride. She said, Son, I didn't raise you to be successful so I could retire from life. I raised you to be successful so you'd know that every person, regardless of their job, deserves dignity. He turned to Marcus. Mr. Okafor, you asked my mother to teach you how to see people again, so let me start the lesson. What's his name? He pointed to a security guard. Marcus's mouth opened, closed. He'd walked past this man every day for 3 years. I don't know. His name is Ibrahim. He has 4 children, his oldest daughter just got admitted to university, and he's terrified of how he'll pay for it. Chukuma pointed to a woman in cleaning attire. Her name is Blessing. Her husband left her last year. She works double shifts here and at a hospital to feed her 3 sons. One by one, Chukuma revealed the invisible people. Each name was an indictment. Each story was a mirror showing who he'd become. Here's what's going to happen, Chukuma said, his voice firm but not harsh. For the next 30 days, Mr. Okafor, you're going to spend 2 hours every morning down here, not as a boss, as a learner. You're going to know every person's name, their story, their struggles, and then you're going to use that billion naira brain of yours to figure out how to build a company where people aren't just employees, they're family. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. And if I fail? Then you fail having tried to be better, which is more than you were doing yesterday. Shukuma's expression softened. My mother told me you mentioned your own mother died cleaning houses, so you know the cost of invisibility. You know what it does to a person's soul to work hard and never be seen. I know, Marcus whispered, and for the first time since he was 12 years old, he let himself cry in front of other people. Mama Araesa reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. The entire room watched, mesmerized. My son is angry, she said gently, because he loves me and he saw me hurt. But I want you to know something, Mr. Marcus. I forgive you, because unforgiveness is a prison, and I've been free for too long to lock myself up now. How? Marcus asked, his voice breaking. How can you forgive me so easily? Because I know something you are just learning, she smiled, and in that smile was the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes. We're all just one tragedy away from humility. You lost your mother young. You built walls so high that you forgot people could still see your heart. But hearts can heal, Mr. Marcus, if you let them. The canteen was completely silent except for the sound of muffled crying, not just from Marcus, but from Ibrahim, from Blessing, from workers who had never expected to be seen, to be known, to matter. Marcus stood up, wiping his face without shame. He said, 30 days, he looked around the room, 30 days to learn your names, your stories, your dreams. And then I'm restructuring this entire company. Education funds for your children, healthcare, fair wages. Because my mother died dreaming someone would see her. I won't let history repeat itself here. Dr. Chukuma extended his hand. Then we have a deal, Mr. Okafor. Marcus shook it, but then pulled the doctor into an embrace. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for the phone call that saved my life. As the breakfast ended and people began to leave, Mama Araesa stood by the door, hugging each person. Her title had changed, but her heart hadn't. She was still the same woman who scrubbed floors with dignity. But now, finally, the world could see what she'd always been. Royalty in disguise. The grand ballroom of the Eco Hotel was filled with Lagos's elite. Business moguls, government officials, media personalities, all gathered for the annual Business Excellence Awards. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over designer gowns and bespoke suits. This was Marcus Okafor's world, the world he'd fought to enter and conquered. But tonight was different. Marcus stood backstage, adjusting his tie, not with his usual swagger, but with nervous energy. Beside him stood Mama Araese, elegant in a royal blue gelée and wrapper, and Dr. Chukuma, watching his former adversary with something that had evolved from anger to respect. You ready for this? Chukuma asked. Marcus laughed shakily. I've closed billion-dollar deals without sweating. Why am I terrified right now? Because, Mama Adaeze said softly, touching his arm, tonight you're not closing a deal. You're opening your heart. That's always scarier. Marcus walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. He was receiving the Entrepreneur of the Year award, an honor he'd coveted for years. The trophy gleamed under the spotlights as the MC handed it to him. But Marcus barely looked at it. 6 months ago, he began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion, I was a billionaire. I had money, power, influence, everything Lagos tells you makes a man successful. But I was also blind, arrogant, and cruel. I treated people beneath my tax bracket like they were beneath my humanity. The ballroom went silent. This wasn't the usual acceptance speech. I humiliated a 70-year-old woman for the crime of mopping my floor. I fired her because she was too old and too slow. I stepped on her work deliberately just to remind her and myself that I had the power to do so. His voice cracked. That woman's name is Adaeze Okonkwo, and she's here tonight. Gasps rippled through the crowd as spotlights found Mama Adaeze at her table. But what I didn't know was that this poor cleaner had a master's degree in education, that she'd been a headmistress who sacrificed everything to send her son abroad for medical school, that son grew up to become Dr. Chukwuma Adaeze, the man who saved more African lives than anyone in this room. The camera crews pivoted frantically. This was no longer just an award ceremony. This was history being made live. Dr. Adaeze called me that day, one phone call, and he gave me a choice, my pride or my humanity. I chose to kneel. I chose to learn. And for the past 6 months, Mama Adaeze has served as my director of staff welfare, teaching me what I should have learned a long time ago, that every person, regardless of their job title, has dignity that cannot be earned or purchased. It can only be recognized. Marcus held up the trophy. This award, it means nothing compared to what I've learned from the people I used to ignore. So tonight, I'm not accepting this as Marcus Okafor, billionaire. I'm accepting it on behalf of Ibrahim, our security guard, whose daughter just started university on a full scholarship from our new education fund. On behalf of Blessing, our senior cleaner, who now runs our staff wellness program and earns triple her old salary. On behalf of every person who's ever been made to feel invisible. And I'm announcing something tonight. Marcus's voice grew stronger. Zenith Towers is launching the Adaeze Foundation, named after a woman who taught me true wealth isn't measured in naira or dollars, but in how many lives you touch with dignity and respect. We're starting with 50 million naira to provide education, healthcare, and business grants to working-class families across Lagos. The ballroom erupted in applause, but Marcus raised his hand. But more than that, I'm challenging every CEO, every business owner in this room. Learn the names of your cleaners, your security guards, your drivers. Know their stories, because the moment you stop seeing people, you stop being human. And I almost lost my humanity completely. Marcus gestured toward her table. Mama Adaeze, would you please join me? She hesitated, overwhelmed, but Chukwuma gently encouraged her. As she walked to the stage, the entire ballroom rose to their feet, a standing ovation for a woman who'd scrubbed their floors at conferences just like this one. When she reached Marcus, he did something that made cameras flash like lightning. He knelt again, in front of Lagos's elite, in front of the cameras, in front of the world. Thank you, he said simply, for saving my life by letting me serve yours. Mama Adaeze pulled him to his feet, tears streaming down her face. Get up, my son, she said, and the microphone caught it. You've been on your feet long enough now. Stay standing. The two embraced, and there wasn't a dry eye in the ballroom. 3 years after that phone call, the Adaeze Foundation had impacted over 5,000 families. Marcus Okafor restructured his entire business model, creating fair wages, education funds, and healthcare for all employees. Zenith Towers became known not for its billionaire CEO, but for being the most humane workplace in Lagos. Ibrahim's daughter became a lawyer. Blessing opened her own cleaning company, where she treated workers with the dignity she'd always deserved. And Mama Arieze? She retired at 73, not to a life of idleness, but to run the foundation full-time, ensuring that no one else would ever be made to feel invisible. Dr. Chukwuma and Marcus became close friends, with Chukwuma serving on the foundation's board. And Marcus? He never forgot the lesson learned on his knees, that the true measure of a man isn't how high he can climb, but how many people he lifts along the way. "Do you ever regret it?" a young security guard asked Marcus. "Giving up all that pride?" Marcus smiled, glancing at Mama Arieze. "I didn't give up anything. I gained everything. Pride is heavy. Humility is freedom." Mama Arieze patted his hand. "And you know what the best part is? When you lift others, you never have to worry about falling, because they'll always be there to catch you." One phone call. That's all it took to change a life, to humble a billionaire, to restore dignity to a queen in disguise. But the real miracle wasn't the call itself. It was what Marcus chose to do after. We all have a choice every single day to see people or to look past them, to honor dignity or to crush it, to build empires on the backs of the invisible, or to create kingdoms where everyone is royalty. Marcus Okafor learned that the richest man isn't the one with the most money, it's the one with the most humanity. And sometimes it takes falling to your knees to finally learn how to stand tall. The question is, who have you made invisible today? And what will it take for you to finally see them?